We are continuing our coverage over the arraignment of former President Donald Trump. He pleaded not guilty to 37 felony counts yesterday. The charges are related to his alleged mishandling of classified documents. While no cameras were allowed in the Miami courtroom, a handful of reporters were inside, including our own Scott MacFarlane. Scott, what did you see in that courtroom?
The former president showed little expression in his face. He was hunched over at the defense table, his arms folded, rarely taking notes and rarely speaking to the attorneys on either side of him. It was his attorneys who entered the not guilty plea on his behalf. In the front row of the courtroom, special counsel Jack Smith, who we saw watch Trump's every move as Trump left the courtroom, and we didn't see Trump look back. Sitting behind Trump in the courtroom, a number of his supporters who won a lottery for seats in the courtroom on this historic day. We also met a California attorney, a dad who was in town for his daughter's basketball camp, who camped out overnight outside the courthouse to win that lottery. He was inside the courtroom too. The next question, when is the next hearing in this criminal case, and will it stay here in Miami or move up to the federal courthouse in West Palm Beach, which is nearer to Mar-a-Lago? Vlad, Anne-Marie.
Scott, thank you. Well, the former president remains defiant and on the offensive after yesterday's court appearance. Last night in Bedminster, New Jersey, he continued to rally against the Justice Department, the special counsel, and President Biden.
Today we witnessed the most evil and heinous abuse of power in the history of our country. Very sad thing to watch. A corrupt sitting president had his top political opponent arrested on fake and fabricated charges of which he and numerous other presidents would be guilty, right in the middle of a presidential election.
So Matt Keelen and Joel Payne join us now. Matt is a principal at the International Government Affairs and consulting firm, the Vogel Group. Joel is a Democratic strategist, CBS News political contributor, and chief communications officer for MoveOn. Thanks a lot for joining us, gentlemen. Matt, I'm going to start with you, but I'm going to pivot over to you afterwards, Joel. I want to get your reaction to the former president's speech last night in New Jersey. I mean, he can be pretty fired up, but I felt like this speech was particularly I don't know.
Incendiary?
Like, yes, totally. The way he kind of went after the Biden administration in particular.
Well, I think this is an unprecedented move in the middle of a presidential election. So we're going through uncharted times, and the former president has to decide whether or not he wants to be a candidate, which he is for president in 2024, or defendant in this case. And it's a tough place for him to be.
Matt, as you know, a new CBS News poll shows 62% of GOP voters think the former president could beat the current president in 2024. The continued popularity among Republican voters is despite his legal battles, but I've heard Republicans who are not in office now, in other words, who don't have anything to lose, suggesting that in a head-to-head matchup with Joe Biden, the president would lose, as he has pretty much ever since 2016. So what do you make of that support, that continued support in his base?
Well, one of the things I said earlier was the unprecedented nature of this. If you look at the polling, actually, right now, Americans would prefer both not Donald Trump and not Joe Biden to be on the ticket in 2024 to kind of turn the page of history and look to the future. So both of the candidates that look to be the nominees are going to need to deal with that as the primaries go along.
Listen, Joel, I want to pivot to you. Same sort of question. I want to get your reaction to the former president's speech last night, and to the way he sort of characterized the Biden administration. The White House is kind of in this position where, if they make a comment, then it almost reinforces the accusations from former President Trump that somehow the President Biden is meddling in the Justice Department and politicizing it. So I want to ask you, what do you make of what Trump said yesterday? But also, what do you make of how the White House is managing this?
It sounded like a man who was at the end of a very long day and at the beginning of a very long process. Not surprising that President Trump was worked up and was upset. And look, he also tried to take advantage of the day. He made that stop in Miami and Little Havana at Versailles Cafe, and then obviously had the big speech at Bedminster. He is going to try to turn this to his political advantage. If you're Donald Trump, the best chance you have here is to make it about your supporters and not about you. That's been his messaging, right? It's they're not trying to indict me, they're trying to indict you. The problem is voters at a certain point are going to understand that you are more focused on yourself, your own personal ambitions, your own kind of personal priorities, and not theirs. I have not heard any Republican talk about what they want to do if they win the White House. I'm sure they're doing it, but the media atmosphere right now is focused on the cult of personality around Donald Trump. Yeah. Also, we're at the beginning of a long primary season, and I get the sense that Donald Trump is peaking a bit early. I'm not saying that that means that Donald Trump is going to lose. I'm saying it's difficult to keep a lead for this long all the way through the early primary states onto the general election. And just regarding President Biden really quickly, I think you're going to see him do exactly what he's done the last few days. He's going to protect his commitment to make the judiciary independent, not interfere, not appear to interfere. And he is going to focus on doing the job of the president. I was talking to one person close to the White House a few weeks ago who told me they like the split screen of the stability of Joe Biden leading the country versus the chaos of the Republican primary.
But does he run the risk then of letting former President Donald Trump's narrative about the Biden administration sort of get away from him, that people will believe the president, the former president?
Donald Trump has gotten people to believe everything. He's gotten people to believe that Barack Obama wasn't born in this country. He's gotten people to believe that the 2020 election was stolen. My sense is that no matter what Joe Biden says, he's got people to believe that Joe Biden's name is Brandon. So whatever the outcome of whatever Joe Biden wants to do, I don't get the sense that that's going to really impact Donald Trump's ability to sway his political supporters. I think Joe Biden, by the account of most Democrats, by the way, the Democrats who I talk to, feel like the White House is taking the appropriate stance here.
Matt, let me ask you about the other candidates in the race, the ones that we know of thus far. They're playing this game where they attack the process, they attack the judiciary, they attack President Biden, they attack the FBI, the Department of Justice, but none of them are actually speaking specifically to the allegations in the indictments. They're even attacking Hillary Clinton and Joe Biden, and in some cases, former Vice President Pence for running afoul of the very same laws that the former president did. But the difference, of course, being that the Secretary of State, the Vice President, the President all returned those documents once they became aware. The important language is malicious intent, right? The intent
and obstruction.
An obstruction of justice, which the others were not alleged to have done. And here, Donald Trump is alleged to have done. So how can they continue to play this game, appeal to the MAGA base because they need them, they're even going to be competitive, but also separate themselves from Donald Trump?
Well, in the case of Hillary Clinton, of course, she did bleach bit her server. That would be obstruction in most courts of law that I know. But I agree with Joel that Donald Trump is really taking advantage of what the Justice Department is handing him right now, which is making him a martyr to the Republican base. They look at cases like Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, Joe Biden, the scandals that are around the White House right now, and are asking, do we have a two-tier justice system in this country? And I think the other candidates are doing the same thing. Along the lines, they are going after Donald Trump and kind of the background noise of wanting to get to a place where Americans look at their president, feel the stability, the courage, the confidence of having a president. And I think guys like Ron DeSantis and Tim Scott have really been trying to highlight that while walking a fine line of not directly attacking Donald Trump on this issue.
Matt, you point to the former Secretary of State and the president. And John Bolton, the former National Security Advisor, had an interesting point that he made yesterday, which is even if those are true, the allegations that you're making, does two wrongs make a right? In other words, even if the Department of Justice, the FBI, others did not indict those individuals, Hillary Clinton, Hunter Biden, but does that make it okay for Donald Trump to have taken these top secret documents and kept them even when he was asked over several times to return them? And then, according to the allegations, being caught on tape suggesting that he doesn't have to return them.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, actually. No, it doesn't. And everybody should be held accountable equally under the law. And I think that's one of the problems that a lot of Republicans have right now. And quite frankly, ordinary people are looking at this saying, well, why is one person being held this account and the other person is not? So if Hillary Clinton were brought up on charges, I think people would feel like, okay, we're having equal distribution of the law. But right now we're not having that. So I totally agree that what he's done, what he's been accused of, we need to find out exactly what happened. But we should have the same in Hillary Clinton's case, in Hunter Biden's case, and Joe Biden's case. Like, the Americans want to have confidence in their judicial system, their legal system. And right now, unfortunately, at least on one side of the aisle, they're looking at this and saying only one side is being held accountable.
I see
Justice
Joel shaking his head. Yeah,
I got to jump in real quickly. It is not clear to me that the Americans who tend to vote for Republicans want confidence in the judiciary. And I'll tell you why. Donald Trump and his allies have spent the last 8 years questioning the institutions of the judiciary. And we're pretty much every institution. This is a political strategy. You break down confidence in the institutions so that at a moment where you have taken advantage of the institutions, your supporters won't hold you accountable. So I take Matt's point, but I think Republicans can sometimes try to be a little too cute by half here. I don't get the sense that Republican voters are eager for a time when they used to believe in the judiciary. I think they believe in the judiciary when it supports their political outcomes and their ambitions. I think at a time when it's inconvenient, when you have overwhelming evidence that Donald Trump did something wrong, I think they don't want to believe in the judiciary. And I think it's our job to try to analyze that and synthesize that and try to make it make sense. But I'm not convinced that Republican voters actually want to believe in the judiciary. I'm not sure about that.
Yeah, I mean, if you talk, sorry.
Can I answer Joel real quick? Go ahead. So what would you say to the protest out in front of the Supreme Court justices' houses, and then also the death threats to Justice Kavanaugh and his family? So this is happening on both sides. And what I mean more so, Joel, is that all Americans, I think, are looking to get back to a normal place. These types of things aren't happening on either side.
Should I?
Yeah, Joe.
Yeah, I mean, look, no one would justify any attempt to threaten anybody's, physical well-being or harm. And if anything, we've seen, President Trump is the one who's kind of turned up the temperature here, and Republicans have turned up the temperature. But look, there's fault on all sides. I guess the point that I'm just trying to make here is this is a political strategy by Republicans. They've broken down trust in institutions. Donald Trump, this is his entire, like, if you wrote a book on Donald Trump's political approach, it's break down trust in institutions and then violate the rules and norms of those institutions and take advantage of it. And he's been able to do that. Now that's in the public sphere. He's got to face a court of law. He's got to face something more powerful than voters. He's got to face the legal system right now. So that's a different test that he's facing.
Yeah, I do recall that in the wake of those controversies around Hillary Clinton, that Donald Trump in 2016 promised to be the keeper of national securities, that he would not find himself doing the same things that Hillary Clinton was accused of. Look how it turned out. Matt Keelen, Joel Payne, great to have both of you. What a rousing discussion. Thank you both for taking part in it. Appreciate it.
Thank you.